Yeah, I want to just start out by thanking everybody that came out. A lot of work went into it. Thankful for the administration trying to do extra to get the students in there. Super thankful for all the people that, plowed parking lots, sidewalks. A lot goes into just making it possible for people to get to this game. And then when you throw on the that actually decided to come, just want to make sure that, I personally in our program, just how much it means to us to have them come on a night like tonight. And again, being a Texas boy, said it out there, like I may have watched this one on TV in covers and blankets, but that's what makes this place special and makes this fan base special. So just want to thank all that. The game itself was a grind. I think you got to give a lot of credit to K-State. They did a good job of, really kind of flipped our game on us a little bit. They controlled tempo. We couldn't get out in transition and get much easy, there in the first half. And it was just kind of one of those games. It was just hard, man. You got to give them a lot of credit. They made it hard. But again, I thought our guys resolved and there was no panic and just made just enough plays down the stretch to find a way to win a Big 12 game when you didn't necessarily play your best, but they had a lot to do with that.
There at the end of the first half, you went on a stretch. You scored 10 straight, pretty much. What do you feel like kind of clicked for your guys?
Able to get honor free, in that stretch. I mean, it's really like he was able to get free and made 4 threes, made a tough one at the end of the shot clock, and we were able to get him freed up on some actions. And really, I thought the end of the first half, like not once we got the 10-point lead, but the end of the first half, not being able to really finish that half and letting them cut it back to 6. And then the second half when we pushed it back out to 10 and we had kind of like some sloppy turnovers and just wasn't able to extend the game kind of when you had a chance to it, then they make a couple threes and you look up and you're in a 2-point game and you're in a dogfight. But, I thought our defense was pretty consistent for the most part, especially in the first half. We were really struggling offensively, but you look up and you're just down 8-2. And then, Honor made a couple big shots for us in that stretch.
Russ, how good did it feel to go into halftime and Haggerty hadn't scored?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things like you feel good about it, but then you're a little nervous about it because you're only up 6. You've done a really good job on him, and you just know he's a great player that you're not going to be able to hold down for 2 halves. But, man, I thought Jasper did a great job on him. It's one thing that Jasper's consistently has done a good job on other teams' best player and, made them inefficient, which that's what you want to do with a player of his caliber. You're never going to stop him. And then the biggest thing for us was not putting them on the foul line. And I thought the discipline that our entire team showed, Jasper in particular, at the end of plays to not swipe down, to not hack down on them, and you really have to over-exaggerate your hands because he's so good at feeling your body, and if he feels your body on you, you're fouling him. So I thought we just did a good job of making them inefficient and keeping them off the foul line.
Outside of those, anything that you talk to your team and Jasper specifically about, try to take this away, try to be aware of certain things that he does that got you to that result?
Yeah, because we have played against him. I've played against him twice. Jasper and Belo played against him once last year. I played against him when he was at Tulsa and then played against him when he was at Memphis last year. And obviously we were in the same league, so our guys were very aware. But I thought our game plan discipline in that regard was just really good, And again, he's a great player. He's going to make tough shots like he did at the end of the game. You just don't want to put him at the foul line.
Coach, obviously, Trayson's and one played in the final seconds. It was a big moment, but I thought the offensive rebounding by you guys for the entire second half was maybe the key to the game. Just seemed like a lot of that's just guys coming from the weak side and grabbing stuff.
Yeah, there's a level of urgency, that we need to play with, and like you mentioned, Trey's. I think again you're kind of seeing Trey's evolution as a player that was a high level scorer. And now, he's finding ways to impact winning when maybe he's not having his best shooting night. And I think he started out with maybe 1 for 7, maybe even worse than that. I don't know what he started out, but it wasn't great. And he just kind of willed himself into the game with offensive rebounding. Went and got a couple offensive rebounds, stick backs, then he makes the big 3, and then probably the play of the game was the offensive rebound and 1 stick back. So, again, 9 rebounds, pretty good defense, and finding a way to impact winning when he didn't have it going for him as offense.
Coach, how do you stay composed in the second half where things weren't really going your way?
Yeah, you just, you're in a dogfight. You're clearly not playing great, and what you're really trying to do is you're trying to think and communicate with your staff. What can we do to help our guys? You know what I mean? Like you can get, and so like, now if there's a loose ball or we don't block out, like there's not really anything to be composed about with that. Like that's either you did it or you didn't do it, but when you're not playing well offensively and it's just kind of hard and your shots aren't going down, you're having a hard time even generating quality looks. Like really the composure comes from trying to figure out what you can do to help your team in those moments.
Ross, what did you talk about the under 4 timeout? It was like a 6-minute scoring drought. You guys were down, and then you came out and Trey and Honor hit all those shots.
Yeah, kind of even taking it back to a little bit previously, I thought midway through the second half we were kind of playing a little bit of a dangerous game. It was kind of a you score, we score game, and our defense had slipped. There was one point in time in the second half, I think they were shooting 58% from the floor. Our ball screen coverage wasn't connected good enough, and they were really getting in the paint. And so early on in the second half, I was communicating. I was like, hey, man, we're playing a dangerous game here. Like, you score, we score. And if we stop scoring, you've allowed them to get a rhythm. So really it was more like, how do we establish our defensive identity back in this game? And I thought a big part of the game was when they had the 2-point lead seemingly forever, and we weren't able to score, but they were never really able to like really, really extend it. So in the huddle, we were just talking about, man, we've got to play with like a level of desperation and urgency defensively. Offensively, just relax and make the simple play. I feel like sometimes guys were maybe trying to make too big of an individual play and putting themselves in bad spots. And, Belo did a great job of got the mismatch and got the double team and passed it out to Trey. And we just started making simpler plays, and Honor, made the tough step back, which is what great players do in those moments.
Ross, I don't know if this is your favorite win of the year or anything like that, but everything you're talking about, it sounds like you couldn't coach the ball in the hoop even though you tried, but just some instinctual plays, some experience plays, overcome the deficit going away. Just it could have been very different. I imagine that's probably pretty rewarding that it just kind of fell back to players doing what they're supposed to do.
Yeah, I mentioned it on the radio out there, and I did mention it to our team. Obviously, we've had some big wins as a group, but this was probably my favorite win that we've been a part of as a group, just because it would have been easy to, just say, hey, man, it wasn't our night tonight. We didn't have it. Oh, I couldn't make a shot. Man, none of us could make a shot. Man, we just, and to our guys' credit, man, they found a way. They kept believing. There was never any panic. And, to me, whether it's like sports, and sports is such a great metaphor for life, all of us, it's always got to be your day, even if it doesn't feel like it's going to be your day, and that's what I told our guys. You can't have that mindset. Trey did a great job. He started out 1 for 7. It would have been easy. Like, man, I can't make anything, just not my night tonight. But he kept playing, kept impacting, winning, and you make it your night. When for long stretches it felt like, man, maybe it isn't our night.
And then for you, was it hard? I don't know how many levers you can pull, but you could have put somebody in that maybe don't play very often and tried to catch lightning in a bottle. Could have sat somebody who was struggling, but pretty much stay on the line that you're always on. Is that a challenge on nights like this?
You're definitely searching for combinations. That's why we did end up kind of going with, in some of our other closer games down the stretch, we've kind of rode that starting lineup. There's been some other ones. The Cincinnati game comes to mind where we actually closed the game with like Amir and DJ on the floor. But, I felt like they were kind of, when we had Harlan out there, they had Buka out there. And it was just hard to get anything close to the basket with both those big guys out there. So we kind of decided to go to downsize, play Belo at the 5, played Chance, and that group was able to get just enough of a spark and rebound the ball and come up with defensive stops. Because that's a little bit of your concern when you go that small is can you defensive rebound, but those guys scrapped and found a way.
How important is it that you guys responded with a win like tonight after the game that you had at Arizona? How important is that?
Yeah, it's honestly, Coach Speak 101 coming here, like no game really impacts the other game, and even though it wasn't that long ago, it feels like it was a long time ago. Like even when we kind of have to do these recap TV shows and like they want to talk about the Arizona State game feels like it was like last season, really. And so, whether you win like today or you lose a heartbreaker or you lose and get your butt kicked in this league, you better be able to like get to the next thing pretty quick. Process what you did wrong, process what you did right, and get to the next thing because as we've seen it all, as we all have seen it in this league, one thing doesn't, like we beat Kansas in here, everybody thought they were like left for dead. They haven't lost since. We beat Arizona State the other night. Everybody thought they were left for dead. Next day they beat Cincinnati by 15. So you can't, you really do. I know it's like probably like a boring answer, but it's like it is the truth. We got back at midnight on Saturday, thankfully. I mean, if there was one blessing of getting your tail whipped, at least it was at noon. And we were able to leave. I don't think Cincinnati was able to leave until yesterday. They play Baylor at home tomorrow. So we were able to get home. The next day you get your treatment, watch a little film, and then you're playing this game a day later. So you gotta get right to Kansas State quick.
At times it may look like your offense is a little static, that guys aren't moving. I'm sure you hear a little bit of the calls from the crowd, but how many of those are actual situations where you don't want them to switch, where you want to cut the pace down and back the ball down from the perimeter or get it with one of your guards or forwards?
Yeah, I mean, that's the challenge. And they were switching everything when they had the smaller lineup out there. And so that's naturally, it's going to stagnate you a little bit because it's really hard, and that's where we've got to do a better job. I've got to do a better job of creating some leads even against the switch or maybe using the switch against them. But again, you got to give them credit. They kept us out of the paint. We didn't even draw a foul for a long time in the set. We couldn't get the ball close to the basket. They switched us out. They have good size outside of Castillo at the guard positions, and they were kind of underneath us all night long, daring you to shoot from three with some lineup combinations. And so, you don't want to get stagnant. The switch stagnates you, and we've got to do a better job of even in that moment of trying to find ways to move the ball, but not just move it east and west, which I think is what we did to start the game. We were moving the ball. The ball was moving. It was just going sideways to sideways, and somebody's got to be able to put vertical rim pressure on the basket.
I'm guessing there are times though where you've got like Trayson with a good matchup or Chance or someone like that you're like, okay, we can live with that. Back it down, take 7-8 seconds, see what you can do.
We had some of, the biggest probably offensive possession of the game is because we had a mismatch we liked. It's probably not aesthetically pleasing, but you had the switch with Belo and you had a guard on him, and so their question then becomes, do you play him one-on-one or do you put two on him? And they put two on him, which is what you want to do with offense, is how can you leverage the defense to make two people guard you, either off the bounce, off a post-up, off a pass. They put two on him. He was able to find Trey, and Trey made it.
What's it like preparing for a team that is missing some rotational pieces and just not knowing what you're going to get from them?
Yeah, sometimes if you can avoid foul trouble and further injury, not always the case, but sometimes a condensed roster can also make it easier for you if it's your roster. And players play with a certain level of freedom because they know they're not coming out of the game. And so, Abdi was such a great shooter, but they don't play that much different without those guys, if that makes sense. The ball's in PJ's hands a lot. They put it in Castillo's hands some in the second half. That's kind of how they play. They just have more players to play with. But their style of play wasn't that much different.
Anything else? Hey, Ross, do you pay attention to the way you are starting it and go back and look at when it's been good, what it's looked like, and when it's not been great, what it's looked like, and try to figure out more of the good than bad?
Yeah, you're always kind of like evaluating, everything, and you look at like, man, what's some of it is you're getting good looks and you're not making them. Sometimes, again, it's like kind of trying to figure out where your leverage pieces are going to come from, and how do you leverage the defense, and because teams will play different teams different, and K-State has done a lot, so some of it is you have to let the game kind of tell you what they're going to do. They were more aggressive with 22 in their ball screen coverage than they were the other night. They were in a drop in the Kansas game, and they were even putting him on the ball with our guards. So you kind of go into a game thinking you may see this, you don't always see that. But yeah, you're evaluating everything.
Sometimes you go to football analogies. Can I use one here? Like, you skip your first 15 plays in football sometimes. Is that at all possible in your sport?
I wouldn't say 15. I would say maybe like the first 4.
So you can actually manufacture some things if you want.
Yeah, I mean, you're always usually your first couple plays of a game, you're trying to do something you feel like works. And then you may have some that you hold in your back pocket out of a timeout that you feel like, let's not go to that right now, let's save that.
Coach, in my mind, there's situational basketball, and then there's, the numbers after the game and the box score. I look at Honor, and, it's not the best shooting night, but his 4 threes in the first half keeps you guys in it. 8 rebounds, had some key assists in the second half, but misses what could have been a big free throw. When you take all of that in, how do you evaluate the kind of game that he had?
Man, he had 8 rebounds.
Right.
He had 8 rebounds. He had, again, he's the littlest guy on the floor. 8 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 turnovers. So, again, it's like, how do you impact winning when maybe things aren't going well for you? Right. And, again, I thought he stayed aggressive. He made, a monster 3. And then when he missed the one-on-one, I just told him, dude, let's just, we're going to have to do this the hard way. That was the message to the team, the whole game, really. Man, we're going to have to, embrace that this is not a work of art at the moment, but it can still turn into, a masterpiece in my mind, But, you just got to, hey, man, this is going to be hard. You could have made 2 free throws. You didn't. Let's get a stop. And we were able to do that, And then the very next time he was up there, and that's why you got to move on. You can't stay out of that. He got up there and made the next 2. So, again, it's not always going to be, especially in this league, man. It's going to be hard. It's going to get harder. It's not going to get easier.
Coach, I asked Coach Tang before this, one word to describe Big 12 basketball.
A grind, man. And I've told this group, it's the 3rd best basketball league on the planet to me. NBA, EuroLeague, and the Big 12. So many good players, so many good teams. You throw in the travel and the multiple of time zones, and it's a grind, man, and it's unforgiving, and you better be able to, move on, win or lose, pretty quick and get to the next thing.
The first half, you put Lorian back in for a couple minutes with 2 fouls. Can you just kind of talk to how you weigh that, sitting a guy with 2 fouls, playing him? I know it was only a couple minutes.
Yeah, I usually try to get guys back in with foul trouble, at least a minute or two, in those situations, just so they don't completely lose the flow of the game. And I felt like it was a time that we could kind of put them in. And, Belo's, fairly intelligent player, and he only ends up with 3. So, sometimes you can foul your own guy out of games. It depends on how it's being officiated, depends on what they're trying to do. But more than anything, like, I'll play guys with 2 fouls. And at least to just so they don't just sit over there and kind of rot away while they're on the bench and then expect them to come through. But his response was incredible. 10.6 rebounds all in the second half. Had some big offensive rebounds and putbacks. So, was proud of him for not letting the early foul trouble kind of derail his entire game.
Coach, thank you.
Everybody be safe.